Crowdfunding really is the idea of an online event, an online campaign. A project is uploaded to Rocket Hub or Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and really those creatives solicit their fans, their networks for donations. Well, actually not donations, for contributions. In exchange for those contributions, they get stuff back, like goods and or services. So for artists, it's CDs, or it's a bundle, it's maybe some of their past work, maybe it's access to a show or a chance to participate with the creative process itself. That's kind of the framework we're working in terms of what crowdfunding is in terms of this panel. I thought it'd be cool to maybe hear Kate's story. She's got a really cool story on how she crowdfunded her record. And how much did you raise?
I raised $6,200.
Tell us a little bit about the nuts and bolts in terms of your experience with, it can be a little scary too, right?
Yeah, well, I actually had two projects. My first one did not fully fund. I have a one-woman show that I've been performing in New York for the last 2 years.
What's the name of the show?
The name of the show is The Asshole in My Head. I wanted to do like a long run, so I tried to raise $15,000, and I wanted to hire a publicist, and I wanted to just like really do it what I thought would be right. So I started the campaign. I think the amount I wanted was too high, and I didn't succeed the first time. But then I reposted it for a smaller amount and decided, you know what, I really want to record a CD. That would be just as exciting to me. And so I had my total, or the amount I was trying to raise was $5,000. And I think the first time, I sort of thought, oh, it'll just come in. And then, so the second time I really brainstormed and really got more creative about it, and I started a little web series, which I called Webassodes, in conjunction with my show. And like every week I would put out a Webasode, saying, this is, hey, if you donate, this is the cool thing I'm gonna give you for $20 or $50. And just little anecdotes, or just things that were really involved in the actual show, so people got an idea of what the show was about, what I was about. And that's when really money started coming in more. I think the biggest misconception about crowdfunding is that you don't really have to do anything, you just post it and then you're done. It doesn't really work, at least not in my experience. So I think if you can involve your audience, if you can show them what you're up to, if you can make them laugh, if you can show them that you're working hard, you're not just asking for free money, I think that's really, I think mostly also just people want to see you having fun and see you doing your thing. And so that's, I think, where most of the success came. And it was cool too, because I posted them on Facebook and YouTube, and I think I actually gained fans, if you want to call them fans. I'm always nervous to say that. But I sort of gained fans just from doing that. I think it really actually helped get people to the next, I did another 6 shows and sold out most of the performances. So it's a great way of promoting yourself too.
It's really based around community. I mean, if you think about your band, how many fans can you name off the top of your head that you didn't know when you started your band, that aren't your family members? How many fans can you name? But once you go through a crowdfunding experience, if someone gives you $1,000, you're going to know their name. And a lot of times, all the bands that I've consulted and managed over the years, there's somewhat of a disconnect. And the ones that have been most successful, I can point to, like Good Charlotte, one of the first ones I knew that were just like, I was still learning what it was to be in a band when I met them. And these are guys who, as soon as the show was over, bam, in the crowd shaking, everybody's saying, everybody. Another guy came into, when I worked at XM, he came in, and as he was driving in from New York, he had a book, and each page was a separate state. As he was pulling in, he'd call the people as he was in the van, as he was coming to that state. He knew his fans, he knew his people. And if you look what's going on the planet, from what happened in Katrina to what happened in Haiti, disaster funding started happening. No one knew what to do with Katrina. Now it's like you can just send a text and donate $10. So it's come a long way. It's really showing that we're all connected. And even stuff starting up like Kiva.org, where you can lay down $25 and give a loan to someone on the other side of the planet. So really what this is all about is we're all connected. And if you look at your community, you really have to entice them, communicate with them, and let them know what you're doing, and give them incentive to be a part of your project. And the labels, aren't really doing too much of that anymore. They're not really building communities as much as marketing. And there's a huge difference. If you go out and put out press releases and market yourself, that's much different than playing a show and growing your fan base one at a time, shaking hands. So that's what really this is all about. It's about the community and about making those connections. It's very, very important.
So one of the things we spoke about, Kevin, last year when we talked was the idea of having a project that matters, right? So, you know, the 3 points that we talked about were a really good project, a community or network or fan base to support the project, and then the cool kind of rewards element. How was your experience in terms of, I mean, you see a lot of bands coming through your camp at CD Baby. I'm sure you see a lot of successful campaigns and probably some that aren't. So any takeaways there, and what was your experience in terms of doing it yourself?
Well, the thing that was interesting being a member of a band is that all the crowdfunding projects I had seen that were so successful and getting a lot of publicity, they had tended to be a lot of solo artists who it's real easy for them to just take the ball and run with it, you know, expressing all their personality. And the challenge I was finding as a band is like, okay, how do we make this work with all of us being represented well? You know, I don't have band members that love being on Twitter 24/7. Two of the guys, if you pull out a video camera, they practically fall over dead. And it's just, you know, these elements that I know are important as far as putting on a good crowdfunding project. It's something that really had to spend a lot of time crafting how we were going to pull it off, because a lot of the prime examples I was looking at were just solo artists who were just naturally, you know, good with people and on the internet. So that was one of the challenges that we faced, was just how to present, you know, the campaign itself. You know, you said that it needs to be something that matters, and I think where I've seen a lot of campaigns go wrong is that the artists don't give any good reason for people to support them or any idea of what's happening. It's just kind of like, hey, give us some money, hey, here's where you can do it. But it's kind of building it up and kind of including your story, telling your story as an artist, and then people are kind of along for the ride. And as Kate mentioned, it is a campaign. If you think you're just going to post it once on Facebook and on your website and meet your goal, you are mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, crowdfunding. I find it to be, in some ways, a little bit incongruous, because it's essentially a sort of a capitalist solution to a socialist movement, and it kind of puts all the emphasis on kind of saying, well, the early days was very much the emphasis was, if you've got an idea, if you're a creative person and you're struggling, get the money and you'll be fine. And of course, that isn't the fact. All the kind of case studies we just talked through, it's not the money that matters, it's actually the ecosystem around the artist, the existing fan base, the connections they have. That's of course the ecosystem that the labels and the record companies used to offer, the ability to promote, to maintain the artist, to give them advice. And crowdfunding is now at a stage where it only just started to offer that ecosystem, and people like Rocket Hub have understood that it's more than just about the money, it's actually about the support and the fan base and how you actually grow that over time. So that kind of ecosystem, I think, is absolutely vital. I kind of feel that at the moment there's, you know, we talk about crowdfunding and then we talk about crowdsourcing, we talk about all these things independently of each other, and they're actually micro strands of a much more macro trend, which is about how can individual entities, be that an artist or a company or a brand, connect with communities through digital channels. So for me, crowdfunding is one part of a movement about how do we reconnect communities of people with individual artists or individual companies, and how can we actually use those kind of ecosystems to help kind of grow people's awareness of a product, be that an FMCG product, or be that a film, or be that an album.
A feature I think a lot of musicians don't realize is how interesting they can be outside of their music. So, you know, when I see rewards on Rocket Up, the ones that usually grab me are kind of the non-music ones, even if they're music projects. So there may be somebody who's baking cookies.
I baked a lot of cookies.
Or doing something interesting kind of outside the box from a music perspective, as opposed to here's a CD and here's a t-shirt. You know, you kind of see those a lot, but when you see other things that kind of reveal kind of who you are too and what you like to do, I think that could be a powerful thing to tap into as an artist, to kind of expose, you know, what makes you tick as a human being. And sometimes that really resonates with folks enough for them to plop down some money and participate in what you're doing.